Ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Obviously, it's Tuesday for everybody else, but this is Thursday for us, a game week. Kind of been living that schedule since Friday, which was our first day of practice, like a Sunday of game week. So really excited the way they've approached it. I've made this point. We had 120 players come to camp. 45 of those guys have never been with us for a fall football game. So this has been a kind of a learning experience, not just for our coaches, our players, but our coaches. But we do have a lot of experienced players that have played here, know our routine, know how we do things. Today was a Thursday practice, which is a little bit different. It's a lot of tempo, a lot of quick transition. We work all phases of the kicking game, a lot of communication, football specific, end of half, end of game, right area, goal line, coming out, early downs, you name it, and then also in the kicking game. So really good concentration practice for us from a clearance standpoint. Everybody that we expected to play, and going back to our last time we talked, there isn't anybody that's being ruled out from the game. There are a couple guys that got in here in the last 3 or 4 days that have passed all the tests and everything going forward, so unforeseen. Even Kevin Wington, who rolled his ankle up a little bit, we didn't expect to have him for the game, but he got cleared in practice today and looked really good. Give a lot of credit to him to battle back and put himself in a position to help the team. So really, really excited for this group. Tremendous, I've said it all week, right? Tremendous respect for Coach and what Eastern Illinois has done since he came there, I think 2 years ago, to have that first year and to build off that and have the season they did a year ago. This whole roster is just chock full of juniors, seniors, really seniors and grads. So I know they're a very experienced group on both sides of the ball. Their signal caller is a guy that makes everything go, a really impressive athlete, very, very good quarterback, and a good group of receivers. So we got a tremendous challenge on Thursday night, but excited to see where we go. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, this is year 16 for you as head coach.
Yeah.
Think about how you feel going into the opener as now as opposed to like back in the day when you first started.
A great question, but I think because it's been so many, there's been an evolution. I don't think there's any doubt every year presents its own set of challenges and unique scenarios. You open up with certain type of opponent, offense, defense, but coaching is coaching. You got to adapt to the times. I think that's the biggest challenge, right, is just dealing with the things that college football brings now, the roster attrition, the NIL world, the portal world. Listen, we're having conversations just as much with our third string right tackle as we are with our first string right tackle, because someday he's going to be the starter, right? And there's a whole lot of things going on in college football. I just had a couple of Zoom calls last week, sit on a couple of committees where you're talking about things that affect the 2025 class. So it's part of it. It's fun. It's enjoyable. I've said it all along, right? I got the greatest job in the world, and to be able to do it every day, I'm excited to get to Thursday for a variety of reasons, but it's finally just a chance to watch our guys play football against somebody else and see what happens.
Are you nervous? Are you nervous before a game?
I don't know if there. I guess everything is a definition that you hold. Like, I think there's anxiousness, right? I think there's a lot of things that you haven't seen before. You're anxious to see it. I don't ever really. There's things that I think even this past weekend. One of the things I did after the weekend with those week 0 games, I literally took a 16-play edit. I took the Nevada SMU game, which probably wasn't on everybody's bingo card, right? Like that they were watching that. I was sitting there late Saturday night watching it, and there was probably 8 to 10 game day scenario things that are really hard to emulate in practice that happened in that game, which is really good. Huge momentum swing. Nevada had it early. They kind of did some things, starting with a 3rd and 10 incomplete with a tripping call that really kind of changed the game and swung the momentum back to SMU, and then some end of game scenarios that played out. So that was really good teaching. They had a safety on a fumbled fair catch on the 1 yard line. So all kinds of just shit that really just kind of stuff to bring back.
I get you.
That was a game that was closer than people thought. Is that kind of just a reason why everybody should just take one game at a time? Is that kind of like a good example?
I don't know. Was
the Nevada
favorite or Nevada? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
I just know from programs. I really don't know what they return. Obviously, I know the SMU head coach. I know Rick Lashley just for a little bit from being around him. I know the Nevada head coach is a very, very accomplished special teams kind of defensive guy. Known for being kind of a tough guy. He had great success. I think it was at Montana, right? So I don't know who was favored. I just know the way the game played out was pretty impressive. I think early games, right? Like you can take records, levels, divisions, everything out. I said this the other day, right? I remember we had the #1 defense at the end of the year when I was at Kansas State. But at the beginning of the year, we played this team called Eastern Illinois, who had a guy by the name of Tony Romo, who went out and chucked it all around the field, right? And you had that moment. 2 years prior to that, I was a young linebacker coach at Iowa, and we talked about knocking out their starting quarterback because they had this freshman by the name of Roethlisberger who's like 6'4", 250. We're like, okay, to get this guy in the game, and he proceeded to get in the game and do what he did, right? So you always have those unknowns, which I think is part of the cool thing about college football. But Eastern Illinois needs no respect from us, right? What they put on the field, right? They have shown what they're capable of doing, and our guys have respected it from when we started watching that film last spring to where we are now.
How are Carson Goda and Daniel Brown? I mean, I think maybe we saw them limited.
Yeah, Carson got 100% cleared, was all good. I think Carson probably for us will be involved in a lot of things offensively, some things special teams wise. Daniel Brown cleared. He's been with us the last 4 days. I think in that room, Alec, Gabe, Seth, Daniel, JoJo Hayden has had a really good fall camp. So I think at that outside linebacker room, you're going to see a lot of guys play various roles.
How's the kicking? We haven't.
So David Alano will for sure be our field goal kicker. I think Chow will be our kickoff guy, and he will be our punt guy. There may be some mix and match based on the game scenario. Lane Hansen is by far, our snapper that's established himself pretty good. Hugh Holtz. So the kicking game has probably kind of manifested itself out pretty good, but a really good competition between David and Chow, and then also Breezy's probably had as good a camp punting and kicking, so he'll kind of factor into both roles.
With whatever you saw in week 0, Brett, with the new clock rules,
yeah,
did it work out the way you thought it would?
It's a small sample. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how things play out. There's a couple of these subtle changes that I think until you see a big grouping of, I look at the NFL kickoff thing, right? Everybody's kind of talking about that. They're just such, I think even in the preseason games, like it plays out differently well in a regular season. So it's going to be interesting, these non-conference openers, right? And teams that don't have common opponents, like kind of how these new rules play out. I think because of the clock, for sure, at the end of half, you're probably going to have more points scored than ever before. And I think at the end of the game, there's going to be scenarios where teams may score a little faster than they should, which puts another team on the field to have a chance to beat you, right? So a little bit of everything. I'm really intrigued to see how the coach to player thing plays out. And then the sideline tablets, we've been talking to people that have been involved already in game days, just to kind of see how those play out. We're at night, right? So there's some teams that have had issue with glare, but that takes care of it. We've already practiced that. But and then also I think the big one, just the coach to player between the play caller and especially on the offense side and defense side between those two guys.
How have you seen that tight end room kind of rebound, I guess, after Cole's loss? And I'm assuming we know most of them.
Yeah, Cole was with us in the spring, but he really hadn't been involved, and we were kind of just getting a feel from where he was there. I think, without a doubt, Tanner Arkin, really since last fall to where he is, he's the leader of that room. He's a captain. The way people talk about him, I think, has been super impressive. Henry Boyer, last year, a lot of you didn't realize it, but he actually had a preseason or a fall camp injury that we knew he was going to have surgery on his shoulder, and it was just going to wait. He opted to wait till the end of the year, so we kind of had to nurse him through the entire season. Obviously, Tip was a mainstay there. Tip was so different from everybody else. We really ran a lot of 11 personnel, and it was all Tip, right? And those other guys, even Tanner, didn't get a lot of reps. So I see this more by committee between Tanner. Henry Boyer's had a good fall camp. Goda has been a guy that's popped in there. Jake Fortney is a non-scholarship tight end that we've acted in there. Clayton Leonard, we call him Cleonard, right? He's a guy that has popped down to the tight end room and I think can bring us some stuff in the big personnel groupings, which we're excited to see.
Coach, you mentioned earlier with new clock management and challenges that bring every season. What do you feel that you have an advantage as a former NFL coach, and have you, with the new 2-minute warning, have you implemented any strategy to use that?
Yeah, great question. I think the thing that the NFL has is they have tablets, but they're still photos. So really, this is uncharted waters, right? So in the NFL, no matter how long they've had, and I was in there 3 years using stills, you're kind of intrigued with it when you first get it, but you kind of get used to it. But you aren't able to push a button and watch a play 5 times in a row without ever stopping. That's a game changer. That's a whole different level of critique, in-game adjustments, ability to expose or find or identify issues that maybe your opponent hasn't seen or does see. I think the coach to player thing is going to be the most similar, but I wasn't a play caller in the NFL. I listened to it, I heard it, but I watched guys, and that's why during the odyssey season, Barry and Aaron, I took them to NFL camps to learn and hear from coordinators that learned how to play or how to manage the coach the player, and then we've used them all fall camp. But I think that's probably the biggest caveat that I think a lot of people don't realize is probably kind of a trial and error until they get used to each other.
What led to your decision to move Clayton Leonard to tight end? And what do you like about him? Maybe filling that.
Clayton's been impressive since we got him. He's a kid from right down the road, just super loves Illinois football. Nobody tries harder than him. I know it's been frustrating for him. He was in a group of freshman O-linemen that came in. They kind of, took a lot of pride in being O-lineman when they got here, and it hasn't really manifested. Joey transferred out, right, and Clayton is here, and obviously Hunter's into the mix a little bit. So it's kind of been a little bit of haven't maybe seen as much as they wanted to get on the field. But Clayton's attitude, demeanor, waiver, he just can't really get as big as he wants. So I got a kick the first day we moved him to tight end. He came out with his jersey rolled up and had a 41 on, right, and had a unique posture, shall we say, walking out. And but the tight ends have taken to him. He's learned very, very well. Had to, from being an old lineman that they told you to play to a tight end that's got to see the play come from the sideline. So he went through a lot, and I just can't say how much I appreciate him and what he's been able to do and put himself in that position.
Who'd you settle on defensively for the helmet? Have you settled?
Miles will be, for the most part, will be in the back end, but Miles will be the first green dot.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.